Welcome to the Elevated Hope Project, a podcast dedicated to celebrating stories of resilience, transformation, and second chances. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Elevated Education, an organization that serves at-risk students through innovative schools like East Point High School, Elevated Academy, and Accelerated Learning Center. At Elevated Education, we believe in the power of education to change lives and create hope where it's needed most. Today, I'm honored to be joined by my co-hosts, Sarah Spangler and Chris Meehan.
Hello.
Hey.
This is our introduction episode to really, tell our audience what this podcast is all about, what the goal for the podcast is. But before we start that, one of the traditions we want to try to remember to do on our podcast is ask the people joining us what they're grateful for. So let's start there. Sarah.
I was hoping I could go first. Something I'm grateful for. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So many things. I think often about the things that I'm grateful for, but the ones that stand out to me, and maybe this is true for everybody, are the ones that maybe things in my life that were lacking before, and then when they're present, it's just easier to acknowledge gratitude. So it maybe in the past year or so, something I'm super grateful for is what I'm just going to broadly call community. And in my personal faith walk with the Lord, in the scripture, it talks about how we are created to need and want community. That's just how we are created. But it hasn't always been something that comes naturally to me. It's not something I lean towards. But in this past year, I feel like it's been dumped in my lap, just community in all sorts of ways, at work, the community here with colleagues, and then also in my personal life at church, in my neighborhood, in my town. That community is everywhere. And I'm finding myself extremely grateful, not just for community, but then the you start to realize, okay, that is a truth, that God wasn't lying. We actually do need community because I feel it. I feel the benefits of why that's a thing. So yeah, that's my point of gratitude.
Okay, wonderful. Chris, how about you?
I'm probably not going as deep personally, but it truly is personal on many levels. And I think you guys would understand this, but I'm truly grateful for the resilience and dedication by our students and staff. And I think our students get it through our staff. So I'm very grateful for our staff and the work they do and the dedication that they have to elevated education, because without them and their dedication, a lot of this isn't possible. We're not able to make the impact on students. We're not able to help students grow and achieve things that maybe they couldn't have or didn't see that they could have. So I'm most grateful for our staff.
Awesome.
Good.
That's a great example.
What about you, James?
Well, you took mine.
Oh.
So I'm a little upset about that.
Darn it. Well, talk about it differently.
Okay. Mine is also community. And when I say community, that isn't one single community. It's the community that we have built here within our company. And it's such a powerful community that is so dedicated and missionally aligned to helping one another and the students we serve. And that shows up every day. Not just for our students, but our staff, just supporting each other and us, and wanting to support us as individuals as we lead the company. My church community is a very big part of that, in supporting me and my family in many ways. And maybe we do an episode on this at some point on community, but it's in those hardest times in life. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that pick you up. They're the ones that are showing up to, do simple things like bring you a meal when things are hard. Or it's bigger things like visiting you at a hospital, or, when things are hard, taking your children for an evening so you can catch your breath and get caught up. And that's just a really powerful thing that I've been extremely grateful for, especially over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So,
What I love about all those answers is it's all people focused. I think if you boil our answers down, we're grateful for the people in our lives.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's really true. Well, I think in this podcast, we're going to get to see the influence of people and how transformational that is and how influential that is in each of our guests' lives to, make some really hard situations more bearable. We're coming alongside each other. We're coming alongside our students that are in difficult situations and helping them walk through that.
It's such a good, also to piggyback on both of those things, such a good place to sit in this day and age, in this culture, because we are so digital heavy, especially the younger generation doesn't completely know what true people influencing their life even feels like, because their influencers in their life are a lot of people on screens. And I know we're doing a podcast, right? So it's not like we're saying we're personally invested in every single person who might be listening to this, but we are personally invested in the concept of true relationship is where true life transformation happens. Fake screen relationships can really take us down a slippery slope.
Yeah, that is very true. Okay. Well, let's take a minute and introduce ourselves for our audience. So I'll start. I'm James Meehan, the host of the Elevated Hope podcast. I'm also the CEO of Elevated Education, which in the introduction you heard, our primary focus is education, specifically for at-risk high school aged kids. When Chris and I got into this, we were building businesses in corporate environments and found a lot of success there. And we started thinking through, what do we want to do with our lives moving forward? And there was, the one criteria that we both came to pretty quick is we wanted to make an impact. And, if there's one population of kids out there that are overlooked, underfunded, all those kinds of things, it's teenagers that have started to slip through the cracks of the educational system. So we've dedicated our careers to serving that need. And, if there's one way to change someone's life or change the trajectory of their life, it is through education, because at the very minimum, you're providing a choice for the rest of their life. Once they have that high school diploma, they have the choice to go right into the workforce, to go to trade school, to go to college, either right after high school or some years down the road, which we see that every single day. And we love what we do. We love the impact that we get to make. And the mission of our organization and each of our schools is very singularly focused on giving a hand up where it's needed with these teens that are, quote unquote, at risk. So that's a little bit about me. Sarah, you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah. So my role right now with Elevated Education is the Director of Development and Engagement, which is the development engagement of the staff. And so my history in all the organizations that I've worked with in the past, and then also a little bit of consulting and kind of doing my own side gig for a while, has always kind of landed me in a spot where I see that there's so much value in the frontline employees, the staff, that if that value could be brought to the surface, how much it would benefit the company and the customer, because the company could strategize differently and the customer could be touched differently, impacted differently by that organization. So I've always had a bent towards seeing that in an organization and then landed here. Because when you really think about, when I really thought about my passion for making sure that every voice is heard of the staff, every voice is heard, everyone feels valued and that they are being poured into. And, the soapbox is that if they're giving something away to a customer or to a client, that they first have to feel that. So they're giving away something that they possess. And so what is it that any staff person at any organization is giving away? Well, sometimes it's a widget, and sometimes it's a service. It's something, but this is giving something to our customer, which would be our students, that can impact their life for forever. So if I can impact a student's life by first impacting the life of staff and making sure that they feel valued and seen and that they have everything that they need to feel whole and complete and to develop, then that's super fulfilling to me, right? Because I'm pouring into a cup or pitcher that is pouring into all these cups that are have purpose and life-changing effects. So I'm super grateful to be in this role. And that's another thing I'm grateful for. I should have said that earlier, and then we wouldn't have had the same topic.
Keep the list going.
Yeah, exactly. And I love working with the Meehans. James and Chris are amazing leaders who truly do want to do the right thing every day. Not always the easy thing, but the right thing. And to be in an organization that is constantly wanting to do the right thing, sees the people for who they are and what value they bring. And also, number one priority is impacting these students' lives. I couldn't think of a better place to be.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Chris.
So like James introduced me earlier, I'm Chris Meehan. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Elevated Education. Like you said, I came from corporate America. I was working in energy, and having this opportunity to come work for myself in essence and make a big impact on people's lives, kind of made it a no-brainer for me to jump into this years ago. But throughout my career, I always found myself in leadership roles, and like we mentioned earlier, a lot of what we were grateful for are the people in our lives. And throughout my career, I've always been put in a situation where I can impact people through leadership, through guidance, through just the operations of a company. I always found myself in a position to lead people. I really didn't see myself as a great leader years ago, but I believe I was. I think you go back and ask a lot of the guys that worked for me, and they would say that I was a pretty solid leader, and I've just grown from there. So I take all that experience from years in corporate America and bring it to this to impact and lead the people that are pouring into our students and impacting our students and growing our students. So that's my main role. That's what I see my main role as is leading the people within the organization and pouring into them every opportunity I have.
Great. Okay. Thank you for your introductions. So let's talk a little bit about why are we doing this podcast, right? We've got a lot on our plates, but we thought that this would be of value. And Sarah likes to make fun of me because a year or so ago when we first started thinking about this, I got all excited, went and bought all the equipment, and it just sat in my office collecting dust. But
he dusted it occasionally, just in case.
Yeah, it's typical, right? I get excited, I get a vision for something, and I'll just go buy all the stuff and then figure out the logistics later. But all right, so back to the purpose of the podcast. Our students, current and former, have incredible stories of resilience and transformation in their lives. And that's really what this podcast is about, is to give them a platform to tell those stories. And the hope would be that it inspires others. Other teenagers, other kids that are in a tough situation, inspiring them to keep moving forward, keep failing and learning, because that's okay. But also parents that may be trying to help their teen in that situation, and hopefully educators too, that get to learn from our approach and how we do things. It's innovative. It is very different from what is traditional, and it's very intentionally designed for the population of students that we serve. And, not every guest will be a current or former student, but in our first several episodes, it will be. And then we'll start bringing in other stories of that hope that caused someone to take action to improve their life, and their life is now transformed, completely different from what it was, and the success that they found in showing up every day, putting in the work, being patient, the things that it takes to be successful, because none of that happens overnight. It takes a lot of work.
If it's okay, I want to add to that list of audience, ideal audience. And it's a small demographic of people, but it just dawned on me how important it is for the staff that work in our organization to hear these stories. Because if you're in education or in any sort of work where it takes a lot of heart, and it's the long haul, it's the long game, there's something so powerful about hearing the end story so your day-to-day work, you're reminded of your persistence and grit as a mentor, as a teacher, how important it is and what the impact is. So I think that it's a reminder, it's an inspiration, it's a motivator. It kind of gets everybody back on track every time we hear a student story of success, or just a journey of any kind that involves the hard work that they do.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So that's generally why we're doing this. We talked a little bit about the format, current, former students, and then we're going to also bring other really interesting guests on that have a incredible story to share. I think really what's important is this isn't called the Elevated Education Project or podcast. It's the Elevated Hope Project, and that's really what we're focusing on, right? These aren't stories just about the academic journey of these students, which that in and of itself is a big part of the story, and usually those students overcoming tremendous hurdles and learning deficiencies and all those kinds of things. But it's about their personal growth, their perseverance, the hope that they found through the process, and the success that they are now experiencing. So that's ultimately what it's about. That's what our listeners can expect as they continue to see our episodes that will roll out moving forward. So Chris, why don't you get into why these stories matter, the impact of, what we call here in the state of Arizona, alternative education, and the work that we do.
Yeah. So, I could argue all day how important alternative education and alternative high schools and dropout recovery programs, how important those are. And unless you've really seen it or have had it described to you, it's kind of hard to understand. Even a lot of the people that are in academic fields don't completely understand it and understand what we do. So it's really important for us to educate the public on what we do and how we do it. And I think you'll see that through a lot of the stories of our guests. But it really, what it highlights is every student, every staff member has had their own journey through education. And it's not what you would think of as the traditional trajectory of going through, elementary and middle and high school. So it's going to really create an opportunity for us to highlight that journey and how it was different, and kind of highlight the challenges that these students had in traditional settings. We could also talk about what the importance of our types of schools, the alternative schools and dropout recovery programs, the significance that has on the economy, on the financial impact on these students' lives, and how it changes, their earning potential by getting their high school diploma. So there's all these different facets that, not just the academics and how we get kids through high school, but the impact on the rest of their lives and impact on society as a whole, and that people don't even realize that someone not having their high school diploma, the level of impact that has.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important, right? The dynamic that we balance is we have the social impact of, giving someone a hand up when they need it, right? Coming alongside them when they're having something really tough going on in their life. But then there's also the economic implications too, of, what that does for us as a community and as a state. In, the fact that 75% of inmates are high school dropouts, like that's statistically significant when we're talking about helping kids that dropped out get back in school and achieve that goal. And the economic toll of the criminal justice system is significant. So every time we're getting one person across that finish line, we're reducing the costs of the criminal justice system by $400,000. That's statistically, right? Not always 100% true, but probably 75% true. So I think that's a really good point, and I think something that people will learn more about as we keep working through our episodes.
Yeah, and I think one other important aspect to bring up regarding the alternative school setting and the dropout recovery programs is, we talked about being grateful for community and people in our lives. We're creating some of that community, or we're offering some of that community for these students, so that as they go beyond high school, they still have that community because they've had mentors that were assigned to them throughout their high school journey. They have teachers around them, they have their peers around them. So we've created this opportunity for them to build community, which can last them the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think for students, not every student's in this situation where maybe they've not experienced that form of support before, but some are for the first time experiencing, I'm getting support from a mentor, from the like director that comes through the room every once in a while, the registrar, the teacher, like all these people together supporting the student and want the best for them. And it could be the first time they felt so much, hey, like we're going to lift this weight for you and help you get towards this finish line. They have this shared purpose together. And then they can replicate that. They can replicate what support feels like in life and search for it and seek it instead of seeking what I do think a lot of that generation seeks is isolation. And it's because they don't know what it feels like to be supported. And so, or have community like Chris was talking about. So to teach them that this is a life skill in and of itself, support, don't isolate, be in a community. If that's all they learn while they're with us, that's a win, because that is going to get them in places in life that they probably would never experience otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, thousands of students aren't coming to us every year because they like our Algebra 2 class.
Right.
It's because of what the culture, being around the culture, being around the positive adults. That's why they come, and that's why they're successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And those support systems are so important because, when we ask many of our students, like, why'd you come here? There's the logistical things of like, I'm really behind in school and I need help. But ultimately, when you get to the root of that, what's missing and what they'll say is, I had no support. And that could be no support at their previous school, could be no support at home, no support in their community, or all three. And And that is a really important aspect. So, Sarah, let me ask you this. Could you go a little bit deeper into maybe some examples of specific support systems we have built within just the fabric of
Yeah.
who we are?
Right. So I think there's some intentional things that we have going on and some unintentional things that are really all about supporting the student. And I don't even know if they realize it all the time, but the intentional parts are that every student has a mentor. And so those students are connected to a mentor. It's an assignment. They both know it. It's very clear. And that mentor is following their progress. And so it probably feels like the most strategic, purposeful thing that we do. But in addition to mentors are teachers, people who are focusing on specific subject areas. And yeah, I mean, we're not going to say we have the best Algebra 2 class, but we probably have the best Algebra 2 teacher, because what they're there for is to see that student succeed in life and at the same time, hopefully learn a little bit of algebra. And then we've got, when you walk into any school, there's a principal, there's maybe a front desk person, there's administrators that oftentimes separate themselves from the students because they have work to do. They have things that they've got to do for things to function. And again, our schools have those people sprinkled throughout, but every person's hired intentionally because, they got maybe they're good at being an administrator, but first and foremost, they will show up for the kid, for the student, and they will take time to go into a room and sit down with that kid if they're struggling with something at home. You can see it on their face when they walk in the door, whether that student has come in from a bad night at home or maybe a good night. And every person is tuned in to how to support the student, even if it means setting aside my work, my tasks for a few minutes. And then there's others that come in and out, and we have partnerships with different organizations, folks who are in parallel work that we're doing, but also helping students move forward in maybe trade skills or finding a job. We have folks here who are focused primarily on helping the student get to the very end of graduation and then what's next. What's their college? What's their career look like? What happens then? We're not going to just drop the student. So there's this whole huge community of people. And again, the student might think at some point in their journey with us, maybe at the very beginning, it's the mentor who's here for me, but it is actually every single team member and all of the partners that we have that are here for that student. And hopefully they feel that. By the time they graduate, they realize, oh, I kind of had 10 mentors. They just weren't assigned to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And the umbrella that we put over that is the culture that we build, and that's top to bottom, staff, students, and we call that building a culture of care and service. Mm-hmm. And that is a perpetual pursuit. We will never arrive in that, but that's the starting point, is when a student shows up and enrolls in our schools, they are going to be cared for and they are going to be served by us as leadership and administrators and their teachers and their mentors and the front desk people, and everybody is bought in to caring for and serving every one of our students, which I think is really our secret sauce. And we're just going to give it away. We're just telling what it is.
That's the magic.
Simple, not easy, which is something we work on each and every day.
Yep.
So, all right. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
So if we think about, what does transformation look like? And we all have so many examples of the teenage mother that just kept showing up, even when she was bringing her baby in the car seat and getting as much work as she could get done as the baby napped, to then going and putting herself through college and landing a great job to support her and her child moving forward. We have examples of the student who was with us and got caught up in addiction and was living in in a house that he built out of pallets next to a railroad, to getting clean, showing back up, and getting across that finish line, and now pursuing a career as a vet tech, which is one of the stories that our audience will get to hear. There's this full spectrum of transformation that these students have experienced, right? Some are, one bad decision. They come from a relatively good family, and they just needed a bit of a kick in the pants and some structure, and they're thriving. To the extreme scenarios, like I just described, of the living in a pallet house, or being homeless, living in cars, those kinds of stories that we'll get to hear, which are hard and sad. And, we oftentimes, as leaders of the company, it's just hard to even imagine a 16-year-old having to live that type of life, but it's a reality. And we're here to help them move past that. Right. We can't solve all those problems for them, but we can give them the education that they need and that they deserve, so that they can move on with their life and grow through it, grow past it. And that's that personal growth and transformation side that we're going to get to see. That's going to be hopefully very interesting for our audience, and hearing the stories of these lives. But again, inspirational to keep putting in the work. So
yeah, and really every one of these stories are so humbling to think about what these kids went through to achieve what they've achieved. And that's all I can really say. It's so humbling.
Yeah. I would say too that the ones that I've maybe hit me, we probably all have a sensitivity to certain stories, but the students who really couldn't stay in high school because they simply didn't fit in socially, and that was going to stop them. How it seems like such a simple issue, but clearly a big issue. And if we can help them be accepted and fit in, then they can actually finish high school. It's just, I don't know, it may oversimplified. It is important that a person actually feels comfortable in their environment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, that's something we work on often, is like that sense of belonging. Like I belong here. It's okay for me to be here. And we try to instill that right away, early and often. Yep. So, okay. So we're going to wrap this episode up. If you happen to be a current or former student that is listening to this podcast and you have a story you would like to tell, please reach out to us. We would love to get you scheduled to come on and share your story and inspire others. We'd also like to ask that you follow, subscribe, and share these podcast episodes, because the reality is you never know who might need to hear these stories and be inspired. You can follow our different social media channels. On Instagram, you can find us at eastpoinths.az. You can also follow our Instagram page at Elevated Teens, and also one of our other schools at Accelerated Learning Center. And then we also have our websites associated with each of those. You can just search those, and we will be launching our podcast website, which is theelevatedhopeproject.com. Thanks for joining us today. Please follow, like, subscribe, share, all the things, so you can help our podcast grow and get this information out to those who need to hear it the most. Thank you.